Okay, hello everyone. It is Wednesday, February 6th. This is the weekly Jensen training webinar. Today we are going to talk about client billing, client invoicing, invoicing for leads. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the question box and I will loop around to them. Don't worry if I don't answer them immediately. I'm going to kind of go through it on one screen and then I'll loop back over to your questions. Also, if you have questions that are unrelated to invoicing, feel free to ask those. It doesn't have to be related to invoicing, but let's go ahead and let's get started. So I'm in our demo account, and if you have access to the platform above the call tracker level, you will have access to everything I'm showing you. The call tracker accounts do not come with access to the invoicing, but all you have to do is upgrade to get it. So the first thing that you'll notice when you get to the screen, if you haven't added a Stripe account, we do 100% of our invoicing on your side through Stripe. We also do invoicing on the software side through Stripe as well. You do not technically need to actively be invoicing people to get clients into the system, but what you will need is to have a Stripe Connect account. If you don't plan on doing any invoicing, because the system is so heavily built around having a Stripe account, all you need to do is get a Stripe account for free. You never have to use it. You can just connect it here and then you'll be able to invite clients. So let's go ahead. Let's say we've gone through, we've added our Stripe account. And the first thing we're going to do is invite a new client. I've already got my test client here who has accepted my invitation. But let's take a look at the screen for adding a new client. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill out a little bit of information for them. I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe the only piece of information that's required here is going to be this email field. Everything else, when the client signs up, they'll have the option to either enter it immediately or enter it after a little bit of time. So the system's going to shoot out an email to them. It's going to say, hey, you've been invited to this platform. Put in your information, sign up, create your account. You can add a phone number for your client, an address, and then this is an important little checkbox. If you have this checked, when you invite a client, when they sign up, before they can actually get into the platform and see any leads, see what's going on, they will have to enter a payment source. They will have to put in their card. Otherwise, if you keep this unchecked, you can have a user come in or a client come in and they can start seeing what's going on, and you don't have to have them add billing until after the fact. So the other important thing to notice here is when you add a client, you have the option to add their billing or connect them to a site. This is going to be the most standard way to have invoicing work. So if you have one client and one site, and you want all the form submits, all of the phone calls that come through that site to be billed to one client, this is going to be how you do it. You would just put in the site here, as long as that site has the phone number or phone numbers that you want associated with it, and the forms, that's going to pipe all of those into the dashboard for this client that we're inviting here, and then they will be paying for the leads that come through the site. Now, as we go forward, I'll hop in through some examples. The billing functionality that we have in Jensen is very flexible. It's a little bit complicated, but that complication is because it's so flexible, where if you have a situation where maybe you have one site and you have 10 different clients buying leads, maybe off of 10 different pages, or a pool of 20 pages with 10 sites, each client has 2 pages off the site that they're buying leads from, you can also structure that through our system. So this is the most standard way. Now, when you're inviting a client to a site, I'm going to hop over here to a client view. So this is another window. I've logged in as this test client, and this is what the client sees when they log in. Now, this client is coming in through Jensen.ai because I have no white labeling set up. If I go back to my main account and I click over here on this white label tab, you can see that this is a successfully configured white label domain. We have it over here on Mark's local client takeover site. This actually isn't live right now, but I went through the process of making the white label active. If you click this button here, and you fill out the rest of this information with the white labeled business info. When the client logs in, they're actually going to be forced to log into the white label domain. So if I would have had it active, instead of this client coming into Jensen.ai, he'd actually be coming into leads.localclienttakeover.com, and it would all be private labeled or white labeled. They would have our own logo here, maybe the local client takeover logo. All the coloring can be changed, or actually maybe the coloring can't be changed, but the logo and the verbiage can be. So that's a quick note on white label and how it works with clients. If you do have white label active, you can always log in under your own user account or under a sub-user account into the Jensen.ai domain, but that's just going to force clients to have the white labeled experience. So let's hop back over to a client, and let's just quickly note that when you have a client, or when you have a number of clients, you've invited some. When they've been invited, they'll go into this bottom section here that you can't see, but it'll say clients who haven't accepted an invitation, and it'll list them. And then when you have a client that has accepted an invitation, you're going to see them listed here. And you're going to see whether they've been attached to a site or to a lead source. So again, a client can be billed per site. They can be billed per lead source, whether that's a phone number, a form submit, a webhook from one of our integrations with Unbounce, or ClickFunnels, or even a Facebook lead ad. So the quickest thing, or the most important thing that I want to talk about right now, is we have this new functionality, and it is the ability for you to have your clients use a credit system, where your clients can actually fill in their credit, and you can even fill in their credit. And instead of getting billed through invoicing, the invoices are going to pull money out of their credit. So let's say I'm inviting this new customer in, and I'm like, hey, I'd like you to test out this lead thing. I'm going to send you an extra $350 worth of leads. You can come in here, and on any client, you can go ahead and you can choose what you want to top them up as. So I might come in here, I might put in the value of 350, and a comment might be initial leads, or free leads to get started. And I click top up balance, and then that client would instantly have a whatever amount that I put in here credit into the system. Now, on the flip side, once that credit has been used, the client has the ability to go over here into their billing profile, and they can come in here and they can actually top up their own balance. So once they've added their billing, they've added their credit card, they can come in here and boom, they can just top up their balance. The way that the invoicing works right now is we're going to be pulling from the client's existing credit, and then once a client has ran out of credits, we can notify them, hey, you're out of credits, please top up. Any further invoices are going to be generated by default, or the default way, which is if it's $100, they'll just be generated the invoice, and then depending on how long you have the delay set for when they should be billed for that invoice, they'll be billed like normal. And let's go ahead and continue on. So the way that everything works together is going to be through campaigns, billing profiles, and lead sources. So if I'm looking at the most common way, again, really quick, let's say I'm hopped in here, I'm looking at this demo campaign that I've created over the last few weeks, and maybe I've got a site in here that I want to sell leads directly to a customer. So I've already added the blog.localviking. Let's add this unbounced landing page to this customer. So we can see on the clients tab that since I have already added a client to a site that is inside this campaign, the campaign automatically pulls in, it detects, it knows that this is the client that's involved. There can be multiple clients per campaign, as well as multiple billing plans. So the most standard way, like we've already seen, is inviting a client, or just going to the client, editing the client, and then adding the site. So let's say I wanted that unbounced landing page that I set up last week to now be sending leads directly to this client. we can see that this client is now assigned. And because that landing page is already in this campaign, that landing page, any lead that comes to this landing page is now going to be selling leads to that client. So now that the configuration has been made where we have attached this landing page or this website or this external Jensen site or this internal Jensen site, doesn't matter what it is, they all work the same way. We've attached the client to it on the client's page. Now to control how much the leads actually cost, we'll go to that specific property's billing plan. So again, this can get a little bit complicated, but it's relatively simple. So if we're looking for assigning and controlling the value of how much leads cost from a site to a client, first we're going to go on the client's page. We've got a client. We'll go to that client's page. We'll edit him in the settings for that client, and we will add that site, whatever site we want to add, whatever property. And then we're just going to go back to that property, and we are going to go into it. We're going to go to that property's billing settings. Every single property, every single lead source in the platform has the ability to be assigned to a billing plan and a client. And what we're going to do, I'm not going to be able to edit this one, but this billing plan is going to control how much the leads cost going through. So let's look from scratch really quick. And let's say that I'm going into my webinar demo and I want to create a situation where maybe I have, let's see, maybe I want to have a site that has multiple clients buying leads from it at the same time. So what I can do is not only assign one entire site to a billing plan, but I can create a billing plan. And let's say that I'm going to go through, and this is going to be site 1, and this can be page 1, and I might put in a little bit of a name like per lead at $50 each. So let me quickly, before I save this, let me just walk through all the specifics of a billing plan, and then I'll get this created and we'll attach it to an actual part of a site, maybe just a landing page. So the first thing you want to do in creating a billing plan, you want to add the name of this billing plan and make it descriptive so you know exactly what's going on. The billing interval you get to choose, it can be either generated once a week, you can have an invoice created once every 2 weeks, or once a month. Now you can choose what day you want the invoice to be generated on. So let's say, for instance, that I want invoices to be generated on every Friday. And this delay right here is going to be the number of days before the invoice is charged. So an invoice being generated and sent to a client is one thing, and then an invoice actually being charged where it pulls the money out of their bank account or out of their credits is another thing. A lot of customers and a lot of guys running lead gen businesses know that as soon as you invoice a client, that's not when they actually are going to pay attention. They're not paying attention to the quality of the leads. Usually on a weekly basis, what they do is you send them an invoice and then they go back and they look through every single lead and they say, oh yeah, those 2 leads I didn't like, those weren't good enough. So this delay right here, maybe I want to generate the invoice on Friday and I want to bill on Monday. That is going to do that there. I'm going to set a 3-day billing delay. So it generates the invoice Friday, bills on Monday. And that gives us a little bit of time for the client to go and dispute some leads, to decide that they don't want to pay for some, whatever it is. Now, the approval section, this has confused a bit of people, but there is an approval process for leads to show up on a client's dashboard. What I mean is if I'm looking at the client's view, they're looking at their leads, they only have the 2 states of leads that have been disputed or leads that have been approved. So if you have a campaign and maybe you're generating form submits, even though the form submits are being sent directly to a client and the phone calls, when they log into their dashboard to see those leads coming through, if you have them set that each lead must be approved manually or automatically approved leads older than 1 week, there's going to be a period of time where the client logs in and they're not going to see any leads here until you approve them. So the way to get around that is if you want all of your leads to directly go to the client's dashboard, you can click all leads are approved by default, and that means that you don't have to worry about coming into your leads tab or your leads tab here and monitoring the leads, clicking approve before they see them. That'll just pass all leads directly into their dashboard. Now, if you don't want that to happen and you do want to make sure that you control the quality of leads as far as the client seeing them in their dashboard, you can choose to have each lead manually approved, which means you literally have to go through and you have to click the approve button on the leads tab. And the other option is if you want to just have it automatically approve leads older than 1 week, maybe you have weekly billing and you just want to make sure that everything gets approved before the customer is looking at their invoice, you can choose this option here. Now, one little note, if you're in Europe and you do charge VAT, you can automatically have that calculated here. I believe it's like 20%. If you would like to have this billing on a per lead basis, we can do that. So you can come through and you can say that this billing plan is going to have a different price or the same price for form leads, for call leads, for Facebook leads, or you can have it fixed where maybe you want a client that comes in, you have a site ranking, it doesn't matter how many leads you're going to be selling them, they just want to pay you $500 or $1,000 a month. You can come in here and you can create a fixed price billing plan, and that'll just generate, let's say for instance, I had this as $1,000. That'll generate an invoice every week on Friday that charges the customer on Monday. If you wanted to generate an invoice on Friday that charged them on Friday, you just change this to 0. And the last thing I want to touch on is this billing threshold option. So let's say that we did once a month billing at $50 a lead and it was going to go on the last Friday of the month. What we're going to have the option to do is maybe we have $50 leads throughout here, but we want to make sure that the client never gets hit with like a $5,000 invoice. If we come here and we put the billing threshold at $1,000, at any point in time during their billing cycle, if their account or if their leads total up to $1,000, we're going to generate an invoice and they're going to be hit with it. So that allows us to make sure that we're constantly getting paid for leads, making sure that we're not building up too much of a bill for any potential clients. And that, from a high level, is pretty much everything you need to know about creating a billing plan. So there's one last thing that's pretty important. At the campaign level, on the settings tab, the billing plan bills for leads. So a lead by default is going to be any phone call, any form submit, any Facebook ad. However, if you want to put some qualifiers on what exactly makes a lead for this campaign, you can click on a campaign's settings tab and you can go to this call lead qualifiers. So for instance, if I don't want any calls under 20 seconds to count as a lead, I can go ahead and you put that 20 here. And then let's say that if someone calls today, I don't want them to count as multiple leads if they call back within 30 days. If they call back 31 days later, sure, that's a new lead. But if the same person calls within a month, then we'll just count that as one lead. And these two settings here are going to affect what actually gets billed. So if you have leads that are coming in that don't meet these criteria, they're not actually going to become leads ever. So you won't ever bill for those. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me quickly check if we've got any questions here. We do. So Christopher says, if I have a client with multiple sites, how is that done? So Chris, if you have a client with multiple sites, what you're going to do, you're going to come to the clients tab and you are going to come to this settings button right here. And this is going to be for whatever client you want to add multiple sites for. You can come here and you can just add in as many sites as you want for them. Now, what I do like to do is I like to keep a campaign segmented by usually clients. Sometimes it's by niche, but I do like to have clients. So maybe I have a client with 5 different sites. what I would do is I would create a campaign. I would maybe name it that client's name, and then I would go ahead, let's say for instance, this was it. Then I would go ahead and I would connect the existing sites. Maybe there's 5 sites. If I was, for instance, I already had a domain. Let's say I had a domain that I was coming in with, kkmarketingpeople.com. I would come right here in this new campaign. I would have already created a billing plan like we just did. And then I would go ahead and go through this wizard. And when I get to the billing settings tab, I will go ahead and I will select the billing plan for what I want. So if this, in this case, maybe it's $50 a lead, I'll go ahead and go select my $50 per lead billing plan that I created. And then this site now, once it's added, we'll go ahead and it'll have that billing plan associated with it. And then the final step would just be to go to the clients tab, click onto the client, and then add that site to the client. And then when you go back to this campaign view, you're going to start to see that that client will show up right here. And you'll have seen that billing plan that you added. And you'll see the leads for all of those sites for that specific client getting piped through right here. So hopefully that answered your question. So, sorry, I'm getting to Dave's question. Dave is asking me to explain that if you aren't selling leads via site, just GMBs, for example, you still have to put up a dummy URL. So I think what Dave is explaining is that if you have a campaign and you don't have any sites added, you actually don't even want to add any sites to the campaign, because maybe you're just having GMBs that are generating calls. Maybe you're just doing email marketing for a client. Maybe you're just doing AdWords call-only campaigns. What you can do is come to your, so you can still do everything in the system just like you had a site, but what you do is you look at your campaign view and then you would just add the lead source directly. So in this case, it's going to be a phone number. I would click add phone number. And then when I'm adding phone numbers to the campaigns, I can click here. I can click as many phone numbers as I want. I can then add the client, and then I can add the billing plan, and boom, I can add everything, have it all work together, and I don't need to have a site attached. So another question from Dave: can a customer be sent an invoice to top up the account when it reaches a certain threshold rather than once, twice a week, or monthly? That's a great question, Dave. We do not have it implemented to generate invoices to top up the credits, I don't think. As of right now, I believe we do have an email that'll go out and tell a customer that their invoice or that their credit system is low, that they need to add credits. We can definitely look at putting out an invoice to add credits. I actually didn't think about that. Right now, it seems like most people are reaching out and manually reminding their customers that they need to add credits. So Chris has got another question. If I don't want to use Stripe, do you have other options or even Zapier? So if you don't want to use Stripe for billing and you want to get the leads out of the system, is that what you're asking, Chris? If that is what you're asking. So let's say that we don't want to use Stripe. We want to use some other billing system and we want to get all of the leads out of, for instance, this campaign, and we want to get those leads over to Zapier. This actually is an undocumented functionality, but what you would do in that case is on the campaign level, you would actually come in here, you would create a webhook. I'm misspeaking right now. So on the site level, this is actually going to need you, and you might need to do a little bit of magic to get the link to work properly. So what you would do is, let me go into one of these other campaigns that has a site. So this is for billing for leads without using the internal Jensen billing. Let's say, for instance, we're going to go to this one right here. Here's an unbounced landing page that I integrated last week with our platform. Now, what you do have the option of doing is on the site level or on a landing page level, you can go to the settings tab and you can create a webhook for the lead created event. And then you can put in a Zapier, the Zapier webhook. You can go ahead and generate, you know, the custom webhook Zapier event, and it gives you a URL that you send data to. You would just put that in right here, And then anytime a lead comes in from that site, it's actually going to pop that lead over to your Zapier account. So hopefully that answered your question, Chris. This is actually, we've done this before. It's undocumented. You're not going to find any help, unfortunately. But if you do want to do that, go ahead and hit us up on live support, and I will make sure that either myself or one of the team members hops in and helps you. And then once we've helped you make this link to Zapier or Zapier, maybe we'll make some help documentation for it. Valerie is asking, are these Twilio numbers? So Valerie, the system we handle, I'll hop over to the call center. So we handle Twilio natively, or an active integration with Twilio. So if I look at a phone number here, this is a Twilio integration. So you can see we have the full call tracking functionality, and these are all Twilio numbers. You can buy Twilio numbers, you can pull them in, you can use them. They'll generate leads for you. That is an active integration. If we go over to the integrations tab, we have passive integrations with CallFire and CallRail, which means that you can attach a CallFire number as well as a CallRail number into a campaign, onto a landing page, onto a site. Jensen's going to automatically pull any incoming calls to either of your accounts on I think every 10 minutes or so we pull in, we check for new phone calls. And any phone calls coming from CallFire or CallRail are treated exactly the same as phone calls coming from Twilio. They will pipe directly into the system. You'll be able to sell those leads. You'll be able to assign them to clients, to campaigns. You'll be able to bill for them. You can listen to everything you need to listen to, like the recordings. So we treat the incoming calls from CallRail and CallFire the same as we treat Twilio calls or Twilio phone calls, but we have a much more active integration to get them. Sorry, Chris, I'm not quite following what you mean that it would not place it in invoicing. So you don't want to use Stripe, but you still want to invoice, is what you're saying? If you want to invoice with our platform, Jensen only invoices through Stripe. So the leads can get in and out of the system, but as far as a client signing up and paying you, the only way that that client can pay right now is through your Stripe account. Here's a quick note. We are connected with Stripe Connect. And we, as of right now, if you're on this webinar and you aren't watching this in the next few months, we take 0% for the lead sale mechanism or the lead marketplace. Jensen gets 0% commission on that. You're going to pay, I believe, a 2.7%, the standard Stripe fee. But outside of that, nothing that you do through the platform. You only pay a monthly subscription to us, and then everything else is completely free, if you will. So Valerie's asking, how do you import your Twilio numbers from other tracking systems? It depends on the tracking system that you're coming from. Off the top of your head, what system are you thinking of, Valerie? And I guess regardless, the answer is going to be through number porting. So Callzoo, I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I actually believe that Callzoo is built on top of Twilio, and you don't need to import. You don't need to do anything other than come in. You're going to come to your profile integration section. You're going to come here. You're going to click Add Twilio account, and then that's not going to do anything to your numbers but pull them into the system. It's not going to update the URLs. It's not going to mess with your settings. If you want to pull in new numbers, you've already got an account attached, you can just press the sync button here, and that's going to pull in all of your numbers, and then one by one, you're going to have the option to configure them. If you have a bunch of Callzoo numbers and your question is how to transfer over the settings, that is going to be a different problem. We have an automatic import for call rail settings, I believe, maybe call fire. If you hit up live support and that's what you're asking about is getting your settings moved over, give us a chat and we'll look into maybe there's a way we can write a quick importation script. But yeah, definitely hit us up on that one. So hello there, Dave. Dave says Jensen shows all the numbers in your Twilio account. You are right. You just have to hit the configure button and then it'll take away from calls. You're correct. So yeah, so put in your Twilio, it'll pull the numbers in here, and then one at a time you can choose which numbers you actually want to migrate over to Jensen, and then you're gonna have to set the settings there. So let's go back. Let me take a quick note. All right, so we've talked about billing pretty in depth. One thing I really want to quickly touch on, let's go back to our campaign here, to our demo campaign. Now we've got this leads tab here. This leads tab is going to be pulling in all the leads for this campaign. Now I am looking at it from a user, and as a user, and let's say I have a client invited that's seeing this lead, I have these 4 options here for every single lead that comes to the system. So I can approve the lead, which is going to make the lead show up in my client's dashboard here under their default view of approved leads. I can leave a comment on a lead, which allows my client to see and also comment back on the lead. I can reject the lead, which puts it into the rejected state so that I can see at a later date why I rejected the lead, or I can just delete it, and that removes the lead completely from the system. On the flip side, a client has the ability to comment on a lead and dispute a lead. So once a lead has been disputed, let's say for instance I have 10 leads, it's Thursday, and I'm billing on Friday. If Thursday night the client comes into their dashboard here and they decide that for whatever reason they don't like this lead and they click open dispute, and then the next morning, Friday, the system generates the weekly invoice, we are not going to generate an invoice for the disputed lead. So essentially what a lead dispute does is take a lead out of validity for being charged for. Once a dispute has been opened, you're going to see on your side the dispute pop up, and you're going to have the option to either accept the dispute and not charge for that lead, or you can deny the dispute and then make the lead valid for billing again. At which point, I believe if the invoice hasn't been paid, a disputed lead that gets undisputed will be pushed into that same invoice. Now, if you had an invoice generated on Friday morning and you had it set for 0, the time delay, they would immediately pay for 9 leads instead of 10. And then maybe on Saturday, if you chose to overrule their dispute, that lead wouldn't be billed for again until the next billing cycle. So that is a little bit of a technical caveat there, something to know. Toby is asking, when we port a number from CallRail, will it import previous call history data? That's a question for Twilio customer support. I'm going to say most likely no. I assume not, but you would have to hit up Twilio customer support and they're going to know a lot more about porting numbers. But I believe that Toby, you will lose everything. I'm assuming. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So we've got another question from Valerie. How large is your blacklist, and or how do you get around all of the Google and directory calls? That is a fantastic question, Valerie. Our blacklist, so we have across the entire system, if I hop over to call center really quick, so the entire system comes pre-built or pre-baked with 110,000 numbers. I think it's always growing, but we have an internal list that comes from the FCC of robo spam numbers that are automatically blocked at the entire platform level. And then you have this ability to block on a per number level. In terms of getting around Google and directory calls. We are logging Google calls and building a database of Google calling. There are tons of spam calls coming from listing on citation directories or business directories. That's something that we're definitely actively thinking about and dealing with. The way that we currently are dealing with it is for active campaigns. We have somebody going through on a daily basis and just blocking calls as they come in as spam. We've also integrated a number of spam functionality. So let's hop in here really quick. So we've already gone over this in a previous webinar, but if we look at the spam add-ons, we have the Twilio Marketplace native integration with the Marchex Clean Call add-on, the Nomo Robo add-on, as well as the White Pages Clean or White Pages Reputation Pro, I think it's called. These together do catch a decent amount of spam when all three of them are enabled. But it's definitely the spam thing is something that we spend a lot of time thinking about, because we, especially as it relates to GMBs, we have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of GMBs. And we notice a cycle that when let's say we're starting a campaign and we throw out 50 to 100 GMBs and we start to optimize them by filling out the description and adding a website and adding some quote unquote reviews. We do start to see that the first week can be anywhere from like dozens to even 100 spam calls coming through that network. And then after we've added some blockages manually and a little bit of time has passed, those spam calls do die down. So Dale's asking, can you show what the client gets when they get the welcome message to sign up after them as a client? Is there any way to customize that message? That's a great question. Let me see if I have a picture. So the email goes out. Dale, if you haven't added white labeling, they're going to see a Jensen branded email. Let me see. Give me one moment. Okay. So here is the invitation email that comes out. So I actually did this earlier today, but you've been invited to the Jensen platform. It gives them a little bit of information and it gives them the accept invitation link. Now for customizing this message, that is a great question. That was a ticket a while ago to implement. I'm not sure if message customization ever made it, Dale. That is something that I can look into. Let me look at the settings here really quick. It looks like message customization didn't get implemented, so that what I just showed you is going to be the stock message that comes out. If you have white labeling done, you can control the email that it comes from, the logo, the branding, and everything, but that is the message that comes out. If you would like a tweak in that, feel free to let us know. It's definitely an easy thing to tweak. Before I forget, when you want to look at invoices that have been generated for a client, all of your clients have this little tab here, and you can see a history of every invoice. This is a test account, so there's a bunch of failed payments, but that is where you look at invoices. And Christopher is saying, shouldn't you use the same number for the website and the GMB? Chris, the way that we do GMBs, we a lot of times will do a lead gen campaign and just use all GMBs and no actual website. So there's not, yes, in some cases your GMB should match with the website, especially if you're worried about NAP consistency. But if you're just doing purely a lead gen campaign where you don't care, then no, NAP consistency doesn't matter. Yeah, Dale, so for adding white label capabilities, I talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but from a high level, it's super easy. Look at your settings tab here, click on your white label tab. And then when you see here, if you haven't already done this, you're going to see a different screen. It's just going to give you one input for you to put in the domain or the subdomain that you want to have as your white label domain. And then you're going to set the CNAME record. So if I were setting leads.localclienttakeover.com, I would go to my registrar for local client takeover. I would make a new CNAME record, DNS entry. I would make it for leads.localclienttakeover.com, and I would set it as a value of whitelabel.jensen.ai. And then I would click the button, and that'll let us know that you're requesting a white label domain to be configured. The next thing that we have to do is we have to authorize your domain through our Amazon SCS account so that we can send out emails through your domain. We're going to hand you back one TXT record and 3 other CNAME records for DKIM validation. And it usually takes about 2 days or so. As soon as you do the white label settings, please contact us and let us know, hey, I just filled out the white label settings. Can you please get that configured? It takes us a really short amount of time, but if there's a little bit of back and forth between us giving you the records and you going and setting them, and then Amazon SCS takes some time to determine whether you set them properly, it can turn into a little bit of back and forth. And Dave has a question, is there a way to customize what the blocked callers hear? i.e. a persistent Yelp salesman, when you block him, the next time he calls, instead of it saying you're blocked, it'll just perpetually ring and be busy. That is a good idea, Dave. Right now, the system just blocks and says, sorry, this number is inactive. We can definitely look at customizations on there. Just to be transparent, right now, things that are happening to the call tracker, there is an update going in for a summary email that's been taking a little bit too long, but that should be done this evening and live. And then right after that, we do have some requests for autoresponder texting functionality. Pretty simple. So you're going to be able to set up, if a caller calls, they'll get a text. You can set up a text message to be sent to them after a call is done, based off of whether they left a voicemail, whether they talked to an agent, or whether their call was missed. So that's the next thing coming out, and then maybe we can look at some customized blocking, if you will. But so that's most of the billing interface. Let me look quickly through my notes, things I want to cover. Okay, so here's one advanced case that I do want to talk about. Let's say, for instance, and let me check if I have an easy example to show. What I'm going to want is a site with multiple pages. Maybe this local Viking blog. Okay, so this is going to have to be conceptualized as I explained. So let's pretend that this blog.localviking.com site is actually something called like nationalplumbers.com, and you have 10 different pages on the site. Maybe you have plumbing in Los Angeles, plumbing in Miami, plumbing in New York, plumbing in 6 other cities. So we have 10 different pages, and we have one site, and we want to sell leads from each of those pages to different clients, or from any amount of those pages to different clients. Now, the way that we do this custom billing is by attaching lead sources on a per page level to a client. So if I click on the site form, every single page is going to have a form. You're going, like, let's say I'm looking at the Los Angeles page. What I'm going to want to make sure is that that page has its own ID on its form. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to have, let's say we have 10 city pages. Each of those pages has a form. Each of those pages has a phone number. Each of those pages, I want to sell leads to a different client. I'm going to go one at a time. So let's say that this was actually the LA page, and this ID here was like Los Angeles form submit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the form for this page, and you can actually assign forms to clients and to billing plans. So maybe on this LA page, I've got a client that I want, let's pretend that it's this client, and I have a billing plan for this client. Maybe he wants to buy $100 phone calls and $50 form submits. So I could go, I'll make my billing plan $100 per lead, $100 phone calls, $50 form submits. I go to this exact form, and whether it's an external site or a Jensen site, doesn't matter. Every form can be done like this, or every form has the ability to assign a billing plan and a client. Then I can go and I can just go ahead and I can assign the client, I can assign the billing plan, and then I can go ahead and I can find whatever phone number is on this page. So let's say I've gone here, I've assigned, this is the LA page, this is the LA form, I've chosen my billing plan, chosen my client, and we're good to go, boom. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the phone number. So let's say in this hypothetical situation, this phone number here was the phone number on that LA landing page. Then I'm gonna come down here in the phone tab, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna assign the client on the phone level. So what we're able to do in this case is we're able to go for each 10 individual pages, and I can have a unique client paying a unique price for every phone number or every phone call and every form submit for every page of my site. So it is a little bit complex, but again, if you have any questions with this, reach out to us, we can help. At the end of the day, it allows the flexibility for you to assign anything to anybody at any price. Awesome. So it looks like, going over my notes, we've gone over everything today. We've actually 50 minutes, a little bit longer than I expected today to go. Are there any last minute questions? It doesn't have to be about invoicing. Last minute questions about literally anything on the platform. Hopefully today's training helped some of you. We're going to again upload this as a recording so that we can continue to add training material to our library. We've got one last question. For lead notification, can you send multiple staff members within a client? So lead notification, Dave, is not really going to be done on a client level. You are going to have to kind of break down into the per lead source notification functionality. So let's say, for instance, I have this phone number here and it's sending leads to a client, but this client has requested that he also gets notifications to like 5 other numbers, 5 of his employees. What you would do is on the actual phone number level itself, you would just come in here and you would add the 5 notification phone numbers here or the 5 notification emails, and that's going to send out notifications when this gets contacted. If I go back to this form, so we're looking at the form again, the same thing can be done here. You can add notification phone numbers and notification emails on the form level. So anytime this form gets submitted, it's going to go ahead and notify all of these objects or all of these contacts. So Christopher's asking for a URL to campaign setup. Chris, if you're looking at, maybe you have the dashboard that you're looking at with no nav bar. One way to get around that is to add a dummy site. So you can just add an external site, use a fake URL, go through the steps, create it, and it'll be there. The second way is if you just go to jensen.ai/campaigns. That's going to bring you to this campaign tab, and then at the top right here, you have this option to click create new campaign, and then you're going to add the 3 things or the 2 things here, and then once you've done that, your campaign will be created. And then once you're looking at your campaign, let's say I'm looking at a brand new campaign like this one right here we're about to look at, then you have the option to add lead sources to this campaign as well as billing plans. So I might add phone numbers, I might add a Facebook lead campaign, I might add a new site that is, I just need the JavaScript to be created and then I can put it on my site that already exists, or I might actually create a Jensen site in the Jensen website builder. All of that happens right here at your main campaign view. No problem. Craig, I see that. Yeah, reach out to me on Skype. You definitely have my Skype. I've been chatting with the SemiEasy guys a bit about that platform. We've got another question from Dale. Is it necessary to use the script for phone numbers if you are not switching out phone numbers dynamically? It's a great question, Dale. So the Jensen JavaScript does 2 things. One is that it switches out phone numbers dynamically, and two is that it monitors form submits transparently. So if you don't care about form submits being tracked, or maybe you're using webhooks for like a Gravity Forms connection, or if you don't care about forms being tracked, yes, you can certainly just put in the number as a static number in your HTML, and that will be completely okay. No problem. All right, guys, we are coming up on the 1 hour mark. Looks like I got another question here. Chris says, so if I simply place the phone number on my site, it does go straight to Jensen without having to embed. Yeah, so the call tracker and the call tracking numbers in general are completely standalone from the rest of the platform. We've integrated them so that like everything works together, but you could technically just have access to the call center, have no lead management at all, and you can just configure a phone number and you can just use the raw phone number, and that's still going to perform its call tracking duties properly. Awesome. All right. Well, if you guys have any last minute questions, feel free, just hit us up on live support, or you can email us at support or team at jensen.ai. You can reach out to me anytime on Skype. My Skype is Nate_Fischer, Fischer. We are accessible via Facebook. And if you have feature requests or any random things you want to harass us about, you can come right here and click on the forum, and everybody has some access to the forum. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. I will get this recorded and uploaded, and we will see you next week.